What if your next stroke doesn't begin with pain, but with something as simple as skipping water? What if it doesn't start with a stumble, a slurred word, or a drop to the floor, but with a morning routine you've trusted for years? For millions of older adults, that's exactly how it happens. Quietly, gradually, invisibly. Not with a scream, but with a whisper. We've been told to look out for big signs: the drooping face, the slurred speech, the sudden collapse. But what if the real danger isn't in how the stroke ends, but in how it begins? Here's a question worth asking. Is your breakfast routine protecting your brain, or quietly pushing it closer to the edge? In this episode, we're peeling back what seems ordinary. What you eat, how you stand, what you check first in the morning, and revealing how those quiet choices may be stacking the odds against you, without you ever feeling a thing. Because a stroke isn't always an explosion. Sometimes it's a buildup of quiet missteps. Sometimes it starts at 7 a.m. with coffee in hand and water still untouched. If you're over 60 or love someone who is, you can't afford to ignore this. Not because we're here to scare you, but because we're here to arm you. With clarity, with timing, and with habits that don't just protect your brain, but restore your power over each new day. So ask yourself, what do you reach for first, your phone or your circulation? Because how you answer might just be the difference between staying sharp or stepping into risk without even realizing it. Welcome back to the Senior Health Podcast, where ancient rhythm meets modern science, and where every conversation is designed with one person in mind: you, the listener who's lived through decades of advice, trends, and changing health headlines. The one who knows that aging isn't about slowing down. It's about choosing smarter, steadier ways to live strong. And today, we're joined by someone who doesn't just study longevity. He lives it. At over 100 years old, Japan's oldest practicing physician still walks to work, still sees patients, still teaches, listens, and reminds us over and over that the best medicine often isn't the newest. It's the simplest. He's outlived generations of medical fads. He's witnessed the rise and fall of diets, pills, promises, and through it all, he's stayed grounded, in movement, in meaning, and in small daily choices that build resilience instead of chasing perfection. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, your presence here is more than a contribution. It's a gift. And today, that gift matters more than ever, because the habits we'll talk about might save someone's brain. Not with a surgery, not with a drug, but with a quiet decision made before breakfast. So if you've ever wondered whether your routine could be reshaped to protect your mind, your balance, your independence, this episode is for you. Because prevention doesn't always look like action. Sometimes it looks like stillness before standing, water before news, food before caffeine. It's not about doing more. It's about doing right at the right time, for a body that's earned the right to be cared for properly. You know, doctor, this topic hits home for me in a way I wish it didn't. Years ago, my mother had a stroke. It happened early in the morning. Quiet, sudden. No dramatic warning. No loud fall. Just a shift. I remember walking into the kitchen and seeing her holding the counter. She said she felt a little dizzy. That was it. A shrug. A quiet moment. And then she went on with her day. But looking back, there were signs, subtle changes, a missed step here, a slower reaction there. She'd been lightheaded before, once even grabbing the wall after getting out of bed. We thought it was just sleepiness. We thought maybe it was low blood sugar or her medication. We didn't think stroke because we were waiting for the big signs, the slurred speech, the facial droop, the dramatic collapse. But now I know. Sometimes the brain doesn't scream. Sometimes it whispers. And we missed those whispers. We brushed them off. And a week later, we were in the emergency room asking ourselves, how didn't we see it coming? That's why this conversation matters. Because maybe someone listening has felt that same moment of dizziness, that same little off feeling after waking up. Maybe they've ignored it. So let me ask you, have you ever stood up in the morning and felt your balance waver? Have you ever felt like your brain just wasn't fully there? That moment matters more than you think. And if sharing this story helps someone take those small signals more seriously, then this isn't just a podcast. It's a second chance. Because sometimes protecting your brain doesn't mean reacting to a crisis. It means catching the clues before they turn into consequences. Let's begin where most people don't. The first hour of your day. That hour, the one between sleep and full wakefulness, is one of the most vulnerable windows in the entire 24-hour cycle, especially after 60. Why? Because your body isn't just waking up. It's transitioning from one state to another, gently, delicately, and often without the support it truly needs. And it's in that transition that small choices make a big difference. Let's look at 3 of the most overlooked habits that quietly raise your risk for a stroke, starting with the one most of us are guilty of. 1. Skipping water. After 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours without fluids, the body wakes up in a state of mild dehydration. That's not a theory. That's biology. Your blood thickens, circulation slows, and your brain, already dependent on a steady flow of oxygen and glucose, has to work harder just to stay balanced. If you're over 60, and especially if you take blood pressure medication or diuretics, this matters even more. Because your vessels are more sensitive, your hydration reserves are lower, and the margin for error shrinks. Now imagine starting your day with coffee, or medication, or both. That's stimulation before circulation, and that's like asking your brain to sprint without a warm-up. Instead of flowing smoothly, your blood moves sluggishly, and instead of feeling energized, you feel foggy, lightheaded, off. Instead of starting the day supported, your brain starts strained. What if, instead, you reached for water first? Not a gallon, just one full glass. Room temperature, no ice. Let it wake your system gently, because your brain doesn't need a jolt. It needs a river. 2. Standing up too quickly. It seems harmless. You wake up, you swing your legs over the side of the bed, you stand up. But here's the truth. When you've been lying flat for hours, blood tends to pool in your lower body. And in younger people, the nervous system compensates quickly. In older adults, that reflex slows. Stand up too fast, and blood pressure can dip sharply. For a few seconds, the brain receives less oxygen, and that's when you feel dizzy, or unsteady, or like the room just shifted around you. Even if you don't fall, that moment leaves a mark. You lose confidence. You move slower. You begin to fear your own body. And the less you move, the worse your circulation gets. It's a feedback loop, one that begins at the edge of the bed. What if, instead of rushing, you paused, took 20 seconds, rolled to your side, sat up, breathed, then stood slowly, allowing your blood pressure to catch up with your brain? Because those 20 seconds might be the difference between calm and collapse. 3. Checking your phone first thing. It feels like nothing. A scroll, a headline, a quick peek at messages. But to your brain, especially right after sleep, this is a flood of stimulation. Cortisol, your stress hormone, is already rising naturally in the morning. Add breaking news, alerts, and information overload, and your system gets flooded. Fast. Now layer that over dehydration, and low blood sugar, and no movement. It becomes the perfect storm. Constricted vessels, tight chest, a foggy head, and no idea why you feel so out of sorts by 9 a.m. What if, instead, you let your brain arrive gently? Waited 10 minutes, drank water, breathed, moved a little, ate something light, then picked up the phone. Because your body isn't a machine, it's a rhythm, and your nervous system deserves a gentle start, not an ambush. So ask yourself, what's your sequence? Water before phone? Movement before news? Circulation before stimulation? That quiet reordering might be the best stroke prevention plan you never knew you needed. Let's talk about breakfast. Not the greasy kind, not fast food, but the ones we've been told are healthy. The ones that sit quietly in our kitchen cabinets, labeled natural, low-fat, heart-smart. But here's the question we often forget to ask. Healthy for whom? And at what age? Because the truth is, what your body could process at 30 may no longer serve you at 65. Let's walk through 5 foods that many older adults rely on, thinking they're doing the right thing. But that may, in fact, be raising the risk of stroke quietly and consistently. 1. Dried fruit. It sounds innocent. Raisins, apricots, banana chips. They're just fruit, right? But dried fruit is fruit in its most concentrated form. The water is gone. The sugar is dense. And without fiber to slow absorption, even a small handful can spike blood sugar quickly. Now, if you're pairing that with medications, or if your insulin sensitivity has declined with age, as it does for most, that sugar spike can lead to a crash, dizziness, confusion, and vascular strain. What's worse, many people eat dried fruit alone, as a quick snack, as a bedtime treat. But instead of fueling the body, it shocks it. What if, instead, you paired a few dried fruits with some protein? Or, better yet, chose a piece of whole, fresh fruit earlier in the day? Because the goal isn't to remove sweetness. It's to anchor it. 2. Fruit juice. If dried fruit is condensed sugar, juice is liquid sugar, especially the kind labeled 100% juice. Why? Because juice strips away the fiber, the one thing that slows down sugar absorption. What's left is a rush of fructose straight to the bloodstream. You might think orange juice is gentle, but without food to slow it down, that one glass can behave like soda. For someone over 60, especially on blood pressure meds, diuretics, or blood thinners, this can be risky. Juice not only spikes blood sugar, but can also drop it sharply later. That leads to fogginess, weakness, and instability. And let's not forget grapefruit juice, which interferes with common heart medications, increasing drug concentrations without warning. What if, instead of juice, you started your day with water and whole fruit? Because your brain needs hydration, not hyper sugar. 3. Whole wheat toast. It's marketed as the better choice, and in some ways it is, compared to white bread. But here's the catch. Toast, even whole wheat toast, is still a simple carbohydrate. And when it's eaten alone, or worse, with sugary jam, it hits your bloodstream fast. Think about that for a moment. You wake up, you're dehydrated, your blood is thick. You eat toast with nothing to balance it. What happens? Your blood sugar spikes, then crashes. Your brain is strained, your clarity fades, And you don't connect it to the toast, because toast is supposed to be safe. But safety depends on context. What if instead you added a boiled egg or a tablespoon of nut butter? That one pairing slows digestion, flattens the sugar spike, and protects your morning momentum. 4. Low-fat flavored yogurt. This one fools people because it looks clean, feels light, comes in a cup with health claims stamped all over. But here's the truth. Most flavored yogurts are packed with added sugars, and when the fat is stripped out, there's nothing left to slow digestion. So, what seems like a healthy breakfast turns into a sweet bomb. Sugar floods the system. Insulin spikes. Blood vessels constrict. And for seniors on medications, or those with vascular sensitivity, that matters. You might feel jittery, or sluggish, or mentally foggy. What if, instead, you chose plain Greek yogurt and added a few crushed walnuts or sliced kiwi? That's fuel, that's balance, that's brain protection. 5. Instant oatmeal. This one surprises people. Oatmeal is good, right? It can be. But instant oatmeal, especially the flavored packets, is processed to cook fast. And that means it digests fast. Combine that with added sugars, and it behaves more like dessert than breakfast. Now layer in your morning coffee, your meds, no water. And suddenly, by 8:30 a.m., you're dehydrated, overstimulated, and crashing. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you were trusting a label instead of your physiology. What if, instead, you used plain rolled oats, added cinnamon, chia seeds, a few berries? That slows absorption, stabilizes energy, and gives your brain what it really needs: steady fuel, not fast fuel. So let's ask again. What are you feeding your brain first thing in the morning? Because breakfast isn't just about starting the day. It's about setting the tone for your blood, your brain, your balance. And in your 60s, those quiet shifts matter more than ever. We often think of fruit as the safest food group. It's colorful, it's natural, it's loaded with vitamins. But here's the truth few people talk about, especially for older adults. Fruit isn't just about what it contains. It's about how much, when, and with what. Because certain fruits, when eaten at the wrong time, or in the wrong form, can quietly shift your blood sugar, dehydrate your body, or even interfere with how your heart and brain function. Let's look at 3 fruits that might surprise you. 1. Watermelon. It's refreshing. It's hydrating. It feels like summer. But watermelon also has a natural diuretic effect. It encourages the body to release fluids. And while that might sound harmless, or even helpful, in older adults, especially those on blood pressure medications or diuretics, it can quietly flush out vital minerals: potassium, sodium, magnesium. These aren't just numbers. They're the regulators of your heartbeat, your nerve function, your stability. Now imagine having watermelon late at night. You go to bed. You lose more fluids. Your blood pressure dips. And in the morning, you wake up dizzy, weak, or confused. Is it the fruit? Not entirely. It's the timing. It's the volume. It's the chemistry of an aging body. What if, instead, you enjoyed a few bites of watermelon with a small snack during the day when your system is active and balanced? That one shift could protect your electrolytes and your brain. 2. Pineapple. It's bright. It's tangy. It's loaded with enzymes. And yes, pineapple can aid digestion, for some, but it's also highly acidic and high in natural sugars. For seniors with sensitive stomachs, acid reflux, or those on blood thinners, pineapple can become an unexpected trigger, especially when eaten late. Some older adults report nighttime discomfort, sleep disruption, even headaches or leg cramps, without ever linking it to the fruit. But when your stomach is empty and you add something acidic and sugary, your nervous system takes the hit. What if, instead, you paired pineapple with a few almonds, or had it earlier in the day with a protein-rich lunch? Because digestion needs support, not surprises. 3. Grapes. They're sweet, bite-sized, easy to snack on. But grapes, especially the seedless, high-sugar varieties, can send a quick hit of fructose to your bloodstream. And if you're eating them alone, late at night, or on an empty stomach, that gentle fruit becomes a sudden glucose surge. Your body compensates. Insulin spikes, then crashes. Your brain feels foggy. You feel unstable. And again, you don't blame the grapes, because they seem so harmless. What if, instead, you used grapes as part of a balanced meal? 10 grapes alongside a handful of walnuts, or with cottage cheese. That slows absorption, protects your clarity, stabilizes your mood, because fruit isn't the enemy. But context is everything. It's not about fear, it's about fit. Because at this age, the right fruit at the wrong time can become the wrong choice. So here's the question. When was the last time you looked at not just what you eat, but when and how you eat it? Let's talk about vitamins. Not whether they're good or bad, but how they're being used. Because, in my experience, many older adults aren't taking vitamins. They're layering them. A multivitamin here, a B-complex there, then a calcium chew, some extra vitamin D, maybe a fish oil, maybe a brain booster from the pharmacy shelf. And here's the problem. Each one sounds helpful on its own. But together, without a full understanding of what your body already has, or what it actually needs, they can create quiet imbalances. Not overnight, not dramatically. But over time, this layering effect can thin your blood too much, raise calcium levels where you don't want them, or overload your nerves with the very nutrients that were supposed to protect them. So the question isn't just, should I take this? It's, what does my body already have, and what is it truly missing? That's why smart supplementation isn't about volume. It's about precision. And after 60, that precision matters more than ever. So let me offer 3 nutrients that deserve your attention. Not because they're trendy, but because research shows they play a vital role in protecting the aging brain and circulatory system. 1. Vitamin K2. You've probably heard of vitamin K, usually in the context of blood clotting. But K2 is different. It doesn't thicken your blood. Instead, it helps guide calcium to the right places, into your bones and away from your arteries. And that matters, because without enough K2, calcium from supplements can end up hardening inside your vessels, increasing the risk of stroke or heart disease, especially in those already on statins or blood pressure meds. One recent study linked low levels of vitamin K1 to higher stroke risk in people with hypertension. And while more research is still unfolding, the message is clear. Calcium needs a guide. What if, instead of just adding more calcium, you ensured it had the right co-pilots, like K2? That one shift changes everything, from buildup to balance. 2. Vitamin B12. This one is essential, but here's the twist. Many older adults are deficient, even when their diet seems fine. Why? Because as we age, our stomach acid decreases, and with it, our ability to absorb B12 from food. Low B12 doesn't just mean fatigue. It affects memory, coordination, nerve health. In fact, some cases of aging-related dementia are actually prolonged B12 deficiency, and yet it's rarely tested for. What if, instead of waiting for symptoms, we treated B12 as a baseline requirement, especially for seniors on metformin, acid reducers, or plant-based diets, because it's easier to prevent damage than to reverse it. 3. Magnesium. Now this one may surprise you. Magnesium plays a quiet but critical role in over 300 enzymatic processes. It supports blood vessel tone, nerve function, sleep, and even heart rhythm. And yet, most Americans, especially older adults, don't get enough. But here's the real headline. A study published in Nutrition Journal found that people with higher magnesium intake after a stroke had up to a 40% lower risk of dying compared to those with the lowest intake. That's not marketing. That's mortality. What if, instead of guessing, you reviewed your intake with your doctor? What if you used magnesium not as a nice-to-have, but as part of your daily insurance policy for brain and body alike? Because the real power of these nutrients isn't in how flashy they are, it's in how foundational they are. K2, B12, magnesium. Not the loudest, but maybe the most loyal. And that's what your brain needs after 60. Not more pills, just the right ones. Let's step back from the obvious, because most people think a stroke begins with something loud. A fall, a slurred word, a frozen face. And yes, sometimes it does. But more often, especially in older adults, it begins with something far more subtle and far easier to ignore. The early signs of a brain in distress often feel like nothing. Just a moment, just a pause, just a maybe I'm tired kind of moment. But if you know how to listen, those moments start to sound like whispers. Let me ask you, have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why you were there? Dropped your keys? Not once, but 2 or 3 times in a week? Stumbled slightly, not enough to fall, but enough to feel surprised? Or maybe you've struggled to find a word you've used your whole life and chalked it up to age. Individually, those don't seem serious. But together, they could be your brain's early way of asking for help. One patient of mine said it best. I didn't feel sick. I just didn't feel sharp. That's how it starts. A slight blurring, a small slip, a hesitation. You don't feel pain, you feel off. And in a world that teaches us to brush things off, we keep going. But here's the problem. The longer we ignore those quiet signals, the more pressure builds inside the system. Blood flow narrows, neurons misfire, and clarity fades before we realize it's leaving. Instead of waiting for the siren, what if we treated the whisper as a warning? Because the brain rarely sends messages without reason. Even a change in handwriting, even a momentary loss of balance in the hallway, even one brief second of visual distortion or word loss, each one might be a preview. What if, instead of shrugging it off, you paused, drank water, sat down, ate something stable, told someone? What if you treated that small signal like the chance it really is? Because recognizing those moments early could be the difference between needing rehab and avoiding the hospital altogether. Stroke prevention isn't just about medication or diet. It's about attention. And at this stage of life, listening to your body isn't paranoia. It's wisdom. We've talked about what not to do. Now, let's shift into what works. Because stroke prevention doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't demand perfection. It demands rhythm. And the first 30 minutes of your day? That's where rhythm begins. Here are 4 simple, science-backed morning habits that help protect your brain, stabilize your circulation, and build clarity. One quiet choice at a time. 1. Drink a full glass of water before anything else. Not coffee, not tea, not pills. Water. After a night of sleep, your body is mildly dehydrated. Your blood is slightly thicker. Your circulation is slower. That's not just a feeling. It's a fact. Drinking a full glass of room-temperature water first thing helps restore fluid balance, thin the blood gently, and get oxygen moving through your system before you ask your brain to start thinking clearly. Think of it this way. Instead of forcing your body to sprint on dry ground, you're giving it a smooth path. What if, for 1 week, you reached for water before your phone? How would your brain feel by 9 a.m.? 2. Stand up slowly, intentionally. You've heard this before, but it's worth repeating. Because the danger in standing up too quickly isn't in the motion itself. It's in what's happening inside your body. While you sleep, blood pools in the lower half of your body. Your nervous system needs time to adjust when you rise. Stand too fast, and your blood pressure can drop. You feel dizzy, maybe lightheaded, sometimes even short of breath. Instead of jolting out of bed, try this. Roll to your side. Let your feet dangle. Take 3 deep breaths. Then sit up. Pause again. Only after that, stand. It's not about being slow. It's about being smart. Because those extra 20 seconds could mean the difference between feeling grounded and hitting the floor. 3. Eat a light, balanced breakfast within the first hour. Skipping breakfast might have worked when you were 30, but after 60, your brain is less forgiving of fuel delays. Why? Because blood sugar becomes more fragile. Overnight fasting has already created a dip. Add caffeine or medication on an empty stomach, and you're layering stress on a system already under pressure. A light breakfast, not heavy, not sugary, can stabilize your brain chemistry and help regulate blood flow through the morning. Try this: half an avocado, 1 boiled egg, a small handful of pumpkin seeds, or Greek yogurt with cinnamon and a few berries. Instead of spiking and crashing, your energy stays steady. Instead of feeding fog, you feed focus. 4. Move gently for 5 minutes. Not a full workout, not a power walk, just 5 minutes of slow, intentional movement. Raise your arms, roll your shoulders, shift your weight from side to side. This isn't about calories, it's about communication. Between your brain, your blood vessels, your muscles. This type of light vestibular activation improves balance, supports oxygen flow to the brain, and reminds your nervous system, we are awake now, and we are stable. What if, instead of checking the weather, you gave your body 5 minutes to wake up with you? Because motion creates momentum, and after 60, that momentum might be the most powerful medicine you've got. So here's the invitation. Instead of rushing into the day, what if you entered it? With water, with steadiness, with food that supports, and with movement that grounds. Because the first 30 minutes don't just set the tone,